Welcome to Book Time with Ryan. I am Ryan, and today I'll be doing the first video in what will become a series. A new series. It's not going to be a frequently used series, but I'm excited for it. I'll tell you why I decided to do this. This is the book to movie review. My first book to movie review is going to be, probably not a big surprise, Moby Dick. This is my very good copy of Moby Dick. And I will be talking about, for these reviews, I'm not going to really talk about the book because I will have already done a review for the book. And if you haven't seen it, I have done a review for Moby Dick. I'm going to be talking about Moby Dick, the movie. Let's see. It's a little bit of a glare. Moby Dick, the movie. With Gregory Peck. This is the 1956 movie. I've also read a book and did a review and had an unboxing. Actually, had an unboxing for Moby Dick and had an unboxing for this book. This is Green Shadows, White Whale. This is by Ray Bradbury, and I think it's fictional, but it's based off of Ray Bradbury's experience writing the screenplay for this 1956 Moby Dick. And I will tell you about it with John, I think, Huston. This is a movie I had been looking for a while. Now, I had seen, I think on demand, I had watched the 1956 movie and loved it. But I wanted it on Blu-ray, and I couldn't find it on Blu-ray anywhere. I could find, that would work in the United States. I could find copies of the Blu-rays that were from Spain, Germany, maybe France, but I needed to find something that could play in the United States, whatever zone we're in, and I couldn't. But then I did. But it was expensive. This is the Twilight Time copy. I spent $100 on this. It has one Blu-ray disc in here, and then there's some extra material here. Why is it so expensive? This is a limited edition. They only issued 3,000 of these. And this is the version that corrected the color. So there's actually an extra feature in this Blu-ray that talks about what they did with the color. What did they do? This is from 1956. And eventually film companies came back and used the negatives of the film to produce DVDs and Blu-rays. What was discovered was the videographer used a special color. They wanted to use colors that were reminiscent of whaling art, and that took a special palette. But that was done by Technicolor after the fact. So if you used the negatives, you didn't actually get those special colors. So what the people at Twilight Time did is they went to the Library of Congress in Culpeper, Virginia, and accessed the film, the final strips of Moby Dick, and worked from those to produce this with the special color that was originally used in 56. And it was awesome. The extra materials in this are really cool, but I love this movie. This is, I think, one of the best adaptations. And Gregory Peck, if you don't know who Gregory Peck is, if you've seen To Kill a Mockingbird, I think he won an Oscar for that. He was Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird. It's been a while since I've read that book and seen that movie, but he did really good. I loved him in this. I watched this 2 nights ago with my dad. We were visiting my parents. And he liked it too. So I think this is Gregory Peck's best film. Gregory Peck is Captain Ahab in this. But I wanted to talk about how this film is different from the book, because I have read the book. It's been a few months since I've read Moby Dick, but what was different? Well, one, in Moby Dick, they leave from in the book Moby Dick. Ishmael, you're kind of traveling with Ishmael. He gets to New Bedford, sleeps with Queequeg, then in the same bed. They didn't do anything. Then they got up and they traveled to Nantucket. On that trip, somebody fell overboard and Queequeg saved him. And you do get to see some of how heroic and brave Queequeg is. And Queequeg's bound to Ishmael. He said he's going to look out for him, and he's going to, they're best friends. They're married. In the movie, it starts out at New Bedford, and they leave from New Bedford. There's no Nantucket. When Moby Dick was written, really the center of whaling was shifting from Nantucket, an island off of Massachusetts, to New Bedford, which is on the mainland. New Bedford could handle deeper draft vessels. They were making bigger vessels for whaling because they could process the whale blubber and oil without having to go back to port, which meant that the ships were larger and had deeper drafts. And that meant that the ships would just have to be bigger. But there's a sandbar in Nantucket that was a major impediment to using ships out of Nantucket. So the focus moved from Nantucket to New Bedford. In the movie, you have some missing characters. The main missing character is Fedula, which is kind of this mysterious character that is kind of referred to as a devilish character. He whispers in Ahab's ear. He's really the one that's pushing Ahab on. He has this idea that Ahab's going to be killed and that he's got to fulfill his destiny, but he can take out the whale. And there were I think maybe 6 other people that also stowed away on the Pequod, the ship, that manned a separate whaling boat with Ahab in it. And that doesn't happen in the movie, which I think is fine. It was always kind of weird in the book to me. You kind of always wanted this background on that, and you never really got it. Instead, you get to see a little bit more of Ahab working with the crew. You do see his descent. He's honest with the crew. And he's honest with the crew in the movie. He tells them, we're going to go after the white whale. Here's an ounce of gold. Whoever spots the whale gets the gold. And later he says that whoever kills the whale, everyone will get my portion of what's earned from this trip. So, which is huge for the captain to give that up. In this, the prophecy is done by Elijah, who was kind of this crazy guy that Ishmael and Queequeg run into before they get on the ship. In the movie, he prophesizes their death. I don't remember, because it's been a while since I've read it, I don't remember if he did that also in the book, or if he just kind of said something was going to go wrong, because he had shipped with, I think I'm getting that now from Ahab's wife, because there was some extra story in Ahab's wife about who Elijah was. In the movie, there's Pip, who plays the tambourine, and he is in the movie here and there, but he's not really developed. In the book, Pip he's escaped Alabama. This is before the end of slavery. He's made his way north. He's a young kid, and he's trying to work on the boat, but he has a couple really negative experiences. He falls overboard. The first time he goes out in a whaling boat, he's kind of pulled overboard by the line. He freaks out, and he gets yelled at by I forget which mate it is, but not the nicest thing. It's basically like, I'm going to treat you worse than you were treated in Alabama. If you ever do this again, we're going to leave you behind. Next trip, Pip goes out on the boat, falls overboard again, kind of freezes and falls overboard. And they keep going because they're about to catch a whale. They think that the whaling boat behind them is going to pick up Pip. But the whaling boat behind them doesn't see Pip. So they keep going too. Pip is left to float in the water for a long time. And eventually they realize they've left Pip. And they go back and they get him. Pip's lost it. He is lost for the rest of the book. And you get to see a different side of Ahab, because Ahab basically takes him and looks after him. Ahab's been crazy. Ahab, when he lost his leg, he lost it. They had to tie him down in the cabin. This is before the book. We don't see that in the movie either. But I think in the book, you know that Ahab's been through some stuff. And when he sees that Pip has lost it, and Pip's really just lost his mind, I think Ahab kind of sees himself in that a little bit and wants to protect Pip. So he makes Pip the cabin boy and essentially shelters him from all the negative stuff that could happen on the boat. In the book, there are 3 chapters. It's 3 days of hunting down Moby Dick. In the movie, it's one final hunt when everything happens, and it's a great scene. Now, this version of Moby Dick with Gregory Peck is the best. And I've seen a couple other ones, but this is the best. I think this Twilight Time version of it is the best of this copy, or of this version. But the 1956, they actually went to Madeira, and there are scenes in the movie of real sperm whales being killed from whalers, harpooned and slaughtered. So there's no warning at the end saying that no animals were harmed. There were definitely animals harmed. This was filmed, and this is kind of what this book talks about. It was filmed in Ireland, near Dublin, and the movie talks about how it was done. They had a studio where they would do stuff. The Pequod, this is kind of cool. The Pequod, the ship, was actually the same ship that was used in the 1950 Disney version of Treasure Island. So they repurposed that ship that was really redesigned to allow for easier filming. And that is the Pequod. That's pretty cool. It's not quite the overlap of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and fictional Moby Dick, but it's close, kind of. So they had this really big float that had airbags in it, and I forgot what it was made out of, but it was a giant, and it got more and more waterlogged. And there are scenes where Gregory Peck climbs on the back and starts stabbing it, and that's actually that model. At one point, the extra materials talks about how the model was lost in this giant model, it's like the size of a school bus or something, was lost in fog with Gregory Peck on it. Like, it drifted off and they had to look for it. Gregory Peck was on the back of this thing. Eventually got waterlogged and it sunk, and they never recovered it. So there's this sunken model white sperm whale somewhere off of Ireland, off of the Irish coast somewhere. For other things, they used a model on a set, and you can kind of see some of the scenes, especially where Moby Dick sounds and he goes under and he pulls the boats under too. You realize when you're watching that those are just little models that are getting pulled underwater. But I was really surprised at how good the movie was. I'm not a huge classic movie fan, but I don't know relative to other early 50s, mid 50s movies if this was really well done. To me, it felt like it was. You can tell that it's not a real sperm whale. 1956. Okay, so that's, almost 40 years before Jurassic Park. We can't expect Jurassic Park like graphics for a movie, but it's still really well done. This is a 600, 700 page book. So there are certainly parts of the movie that they have to pull back on time-wise. There's only one gam. They meet the Rachel. This is when the Rachel is talking about how they just dealt with... they met the I forgot the name of the ship. and the captain had lost his arm to Moby Dick and had gone after him a few days before, so that motivated Ahab to speed up. Then they ran into the Rachel, and the Rachel was looking for the captain of the Rachel's son, who had been out on a whaleboat and was missing. And instead of helping search for the Rachel's captain's son, Ahab decides they need to head off and look for Moby Dick, which is a big no-no. And it comes all the way around when Pequod sinks, everyone dies except for Ishmael, and Ishmael is picked up by the Rachel, which had been looking for their own son and found an orphan, is what Ishmael says. From reading this book, it sounds like this movie was very hard to do. It was, I guess John Huston was a very difficult director and producer, and Ray Bradbury didn't enjoy that part of it. And you'll get that from, if you read Green Shadows, White Whale, you'll really get the feel for the fact that Ray Bradbury was having a difficult time working with John Huston. But I have to recommend this version of Moby Dick to anybody. I gave Moby Dick 5 stars. I love Moby Dick. The movie, this is the best version of the movie. 1956 with Gregory Peck. And then above that, this is the greatest copy of that version because it's true to the colors and it's been cleaned up. And the extra materials are great too. This obviously was not cheap, but you may be able to find cheaper versions of it. You can certainly find more expensive copies than I did. This is listed on eBay or something for $250, which seems like a lot. So you can find it less than that. I think you can find it for $90 somewhere. $100 was with shipping from Canada, I believe, from like Ontario. So you may be able to find something cheaper, but there's only 3,000 of them, and it's Twilight Time, the limited edition Moby Dick with Gregory Peck. That's it for today. This is probably a hard book to start with because it is very close to the book, and the shortcuts that they had to take in the movie were completely appropriate given the length of the book and the need to have an appropriately timed movie. So I have no problem with that. I love this version of it. I think this is the best. I would give it 5 stars for a 5-star book. It has really stayed true to the book, and I think it remains the greatest version of Moby Dick ever done. And there have been a lot of Moby Dicks done, and there have been Moby Dicks that have been done even in the last 10, 15 years. So check it out. Gregory Peck, Moby Dick. Watch Moby Dick. And if you want to do both, you could even read about how the book was, or how the book was turned into the movie. That's it. I also should say that I had my birthday recently, and I got an iPhone 14 Pro for my birthday, and that's what I'm filming on. So this is the cinematic filming option. I think it looks cool in the background. We'll see how it goes, but I wanted to try it out, so I figured I would start this new series, the Books to Movie Review, and we would start with one of my favorite books, Moby Dick, with one of my favorite adaptations from a book to a movie, Moby Dick with Gregory Peck. Thanks for being here today. Have a good one.